Here we go. So, anyhow, I don't know how much that got recorded. Hopefully the part where I told you to take off your clothes and whatever was not being recorded, but anyhow. So let's actually dive into some of these questions, okay? So, when we look at these, we look at exercise number 5. They give you a function. They start with very simple linear functions, okay? They give you f of x equals 3x plus 5. Okay, f of x is 3x plus 5. They're asking you to solve this. What do they say? Solve this for x. Solve this for x. So here's what I would suggest you do, okay? And we've talked about this in the past. When you see f of x, you can just cross it out and make it a what?
Zero.
A y. A y. Well, okay. I heard 0, okay? When you're trying to find the zeros of a function, you make it 0. We're not trying to find the zeros, though. When you see f of x, y, same thing, okay? So make it y equals 3x plus 5. They want you to solve this for x, okay? So we do two things. First thing is subtract 5. Simple enough. So y minus 5 is y minus 5 equals 3x. And the last thing we do to solve for x is 5 by 3. So x equals y minus 5 over 3. And that makes sense because what this is, when you're solving for it, it's doing the inverse. When you plug in a number for x, the first thing you do is times 3, add 5. Times 3, and then you add 5. When you plug in a number for y, what's the first thing you do? You minus 5 and divide 3. It undoes what you did. Timesing 3, adding 5, and then subtracting that 5, and then dividing by 3, you're back where you started, okay? Then they ask you to do one more thing, okay? Then they ask you to find the input when the output is negative 3. So all you do is you plug in negative 3. Now if you're wondering, well, where did negative 3 come from? They're telling you to plug in negative 3. Plug in negative 3. So negative 3 minus 5 over 3. Negative 8/3, and you're done. Okay, that's all you're doing. Solving for x, and then plugging in what they're telling you to plug in. Okay? Number 7. Again, it says f of x. But we're going to make it a y immediately. And we have, what do we have here? So let's say 1/2 x minus 3. 1/2 x minus 3. So, cross it out, make a y. And solve for y. Okay? Solve for y. So, we're going to add 3 to each side. So y plus 3 is y plus 3 equals 1/2 x. And then what you would do is you could divide by half. You could do that. There's nothing wrong with that, okay? Or what I would do, I'm sorry, just let me get out of the way. I see you going back and forth, So, hey, Kay, I'll move, okay? I won't be offended. Okay, there's nothing wrong with dividing by half, but to make it a little bit nicer, I don't like fractions. So I'm going to just times each side by the denominator. I'm going to clear my denominators. Times this side by 2, times this side by 2. That way these cancel. We won't have any fractions at all. So 2 times y plus 3 is 2y plus 6. And I think we always plug in the same thing. They always want you to plug in negative 3. They really like the number negative 3 apparently. Okay? So we plug in negative 3. So 2 times negative 3 plus 6, which is negative 6 plus 6, which is 0. Again, there's nothing special about negative 3. That just happens to be the number they tell you to plug in. You can plug in whatever they want you to.
So you would multiply by 2 because it's a fraction?
Well, here's what we got, okay? If I give you this right here, we hit, I'm sorry, say one more time. Make sure I'm answering
So
right.
would you multiply the half by 2 to be 1?
Yes, I don't like fractions, okay? What we could have done this. We could have done this. We had y plus 3 equals 1/2 x. We could have divided by half. I'm going to tell you right now, the computer's probably not going to take that as an answer. Y plus 3 over 1/2, okay? Because dividing by 1 over 2 is the same as timesing by 2 over 1. Okay? What we have there, not to brag, that's a simpler answer than this. Okay? I mean, it is. There's less junk in there. It's just 2y plus 6.
So
Okay.
would the inverse be negative or divide by 2 subtract?
Well, it's hard to tell if these are inverses of each other, but they are. Okay. I mean, again, I can prove it right here. Let's take 10. Let's take 10. Half of 10 is 5. Minus 3 is 7. Plug in 7 right here. Okay. 2 times 7 is. Wait a minute.
How do you get minus 3 from 5 plus 7?
What did I do wrong here? Hang on a second. I screwed up somewhere. 10, 5. Wait a minute. Did I say 2? Hang on. Let's do, hang on. Just give me a second here. 10, 5, 7. Hang on. Did I write this down? I just want to make sure I'm having a brain cramp here myself. Give me just a second here. It's just 2. Plus 6. If I plugged in 10, we'd get 2. Half 2. Oh, we're good, we're good, okay.
Do we not have to?
If I was plugging, just hang with me a second. They are inverses, they don't look like it, okay? And I'm gonna show you why it's an inverse, then I'll tell you how come. If I started with, for example, 10, plug in 10, we're gonna end up with 10. Plug in 10 here, what's half of 10? 5 minus 3 is 2. Put that 2 in here, what's 2 times 2? 4 plus 6 is 10, okay? It would look a little more.
So 2i plus 6 is the inverse?
Is the inverse, and here's why. And this is what Jordan brought up, okay? It would look more like the inverse if I wrote it like this, okay? The first thing we do is we take half. Taking half of something is the same as dividing by 2. Do you agree with that? Taking half of something is the same as dividing by 2. So we're dividing by 2, and then we're minusing 3,
That's what I put.
okay? So in this case, the inverse would be adding 3 and then timesing by 2, okay? This doesn't look like adding 3 and timesing by 2. But if I wrote it like this, factor out of 2. If I plug in a number, we're going to add 3, then times 2. If I plugged in 7, first thing you do is add 3, then we're going to times by 2. This is the same as that. They just don't look the same. Okay? All right, good questions. All right, let's look at number 9. Okay. So in this case, now they're getting a little more difficult. We still do the same thing though. F of x is, okay, ladies, let's chat later, okay? 3x to, does that say, 3x to the third? Okay. All right, and then we're always going to plug in -3. Okay, so they want the first off, cross off f of x, make it a y. Okay, let's solve it for x. The first thing we do is this, okay? I've never said this before, okay? And I want to make sure we're all on the same page here because KO talks a little bit differently than other teachers. The way I've taught you guys, let's go in the past, and I don't know if I actually really taught you this because you learned it in Algebra 1, and I didn't teach you guys Algebra 1. The way I teach is just put this question on hold. I give you 3x plus 1 equals 13, okay? We all know how to solve this, okay? We subtract 1 to each side, okay? Here's the way I teach this, okay? I want to make sure we're all on the same page here. I want to get x by itself, so I need to get rid of the 3 and the 1. The reason why I tell students in Algebra 1, back a couple of years ago in Algebra 1, I tell students if there's 2 numbers to get rid of, you get rid of, and don't think hard on this, you get rid of what's farthest away from the x first. What's farther away from the x, the 3 or the 1? I mean, literally farther away, the 3 or the 1? What's farther away? The 1. What makes the 1, it sounds kind of weird here, what makes the 1 farther away from the x? The little plus sign. What's between the 3 and the x? Nothing. What's between the x and the 1? A plus sign. That makes it farther away. You guys get what I'm saying? Farther away? Okay. Now, with that being said, I need to get x by itself. I need to get rid of this 3 and this cube. It's really okay to say what you're thinking, okay? Which one's farther away?
The cube,
Why do you say that?
because it's up, and that one's right next to it.
Okay. You said the wrong thing. You're right. Well, you're wrong, but you're right. Okay? What I mean is this. I agree with you that I would say that one's kind of farther away because it's up here and that one's right next to it, okay? I think they're both the same distance. They're the same. I mean, they're right. I mean, what's between the 3 and the x?
Nothing.
What's between the x and the cube? Nothing. So in my opinion, and again, you could argue that it is, but I say they're the equal distance away from. There ain't nothing between them. There ain't nothing in between them, okay? So, which one do you get rid of first? Here's the way I say it. You're not going to read this in a math book, okay? If they're right next to each other, you get rid of the bigger number first. You got to watch. You can't just listen on this, okay? Bigger, meaning bigger number. Bigger number, okay? So if I go like this, I want to make sure you understand. What's the bigger number here, the 2 or the 7?
2.
Not bigger in value, bigger in this
2.
2. We got, look at it. Big 2, teeny 7, okay? You get rid of the bigger number first. The bigger in size, not bigger in value, okay? So we got to get rid of this 3 first. How do I get rid of that 3?
The
Divide 3. Divide 3. So y over 3 equals x cubed. Okay? And how do we get rid of the cube? No. Cube root. How do you get rid of squares? Square root. How do you get rid of cubes? Cube root. How do you get rid of fourths? Fourth root. Okay? Now, before we go any further, I want to make sure you understand. When I taught you this way back when, if I give you x squared equals 100, we square root, and I say put the plus or minus symbol there. I've said this a few times. I haven't said it enough. I want to make sure we understand this. This is a really hard concept for students to remember. When you take the square root, you have to put a plus or minus symbol there. You got to put a plus or minus symbol. When you take a cube root, you don't need to do a plus or minus symbol. And the reason is this. X cubed is 8. By now, you should be able to answer this immediately. That's an easy one. What number cubed gives you 8? And negative 2? No, just 2. Because 2 times 2 times 2 is 8. Negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2 is not 8, it's negative 8. It's just 2. But x squared is 100, that has two answers. 10 and negative 10. So what you need to understand is this. When you take an even root, like a square root, a fourth root, a 10th root, a 24th root, you have to put a plus or minus symbol. When you have an odd root, like a third root or a fifth root or a seventh root, you don't put a plus or minus symbol, okay? So, we cube root, based on what I just said, do I put a plus or minus symbol here? No. So we're left with the cube root of y over 3 equals x. Then we're still plugging in negative 1, I think? Or negative 3, I mean? Still plug in negative 3. So we have the cube root of negative 3 over 3. And that simplifies. What does that simplify down to? Well, what is negative 3 divided by 3? Negative 1. And what's the cube root of negative 1? And why? Cube root of negative 1 is not 1. Negative 1. Why?
Because negative 1 times negative 1 times negative 1 is still negative 1.
It's negative 1 times negative 1 times negative 1 is negative 1. Now, if you're sitting there going, wait a minute, I thought Caleb used to always say if you have negatives inside of radicals, it's imaginary. Negatives inside of even roots are imaginary. You can have negatives inside of odd roots, just not even roots. All right, number 11. Okay, so we have x minus 2 squared minus 7. F of x is x minus 2 squared.
You can just write y.
So, yeah, if you just want to put a y, that's fine. Make sure I wrote this right. Yes, ma'am, x minus 2 squared.
So, on number 9, where it says x equals, what do we put in there?
What I circled. Cube root of y over 3. Okay. And if you're not sure how to type that in, I'm not sure, to be honest with you right now, I'd have to actually look at your computer and show you how to do it. I can't tell you which buttons, I have to see the buttons to know which ones, because even then I might not know how to do that. So, let's change this to a y, like I always said. What are we going to do first? Do I get rid of the 2 or the square or the 7 first? 7, why? It's farthest away, so we add 7 to each side. I'm not saying the way Mrs. Thomas taught you is wrong, that's just the way I say it. I don't know how she said it, okay, but that's just the way I say it. So y plus 7 equals x minus 2. Then do I get rid of the 2 or the square next? The square, why?
Orders of operation.
It's farthest away also. So we square root, that gets rid of squares, we square root.
Plus,
Good. We didn't last time, why?
because it wasn't even.
It wasn't an even root. Now it is an even, it's a square root, so put a plus or minus symbol. So plus or minus, radical y plus 7 equals, these cancel, x minus 2. What's the last thing we do? Add 2. And let's put that 2 in front. So the answer is 2 plus or minus radical y plus 7. So 2 plus or minus radical y plus 7. And we're still plugging in negative 3. Okay, if we plug in negative 3, let's take this kind of slow here. This is a little bit tricky. We're going to plug in negative 3. So 2 plus or minus negative 3 plus 7. Well, negative 3 plus 7 is 4. So 2 plus or minus radical 4. And radical 4 is 2. So 2 plus or minus 2. How many numbers is that up there? 2 plus or minus 2. How many numbers is that? 2. Okay, what are they? Neither one of them are 2. Do what it says. When it says plus or minus, plus them and minus them. 4 and
0.
0. Where'd you get 4 from?
2 plus 2 is
Where'd you get 0 from?
2 minus
So the answers are 4 and 0. Okay, 13. Okay. Now, what they're doing. Here's some great review, stuff we have not done in a while. Okay? They want us to find the inverse of something, and then they want us to graph the function and its inverse. Okay? So, here's what you do to find the inverse here. They give us f of x is 6x. Now, you should be able to just tell me the inverse if you think about this, okay? And what I mean is that, and we're not, in words you should be able to tell me, okay? I mean, 6x means 6 times x. Whatever number we get, we're going to times by 6. What'd you say? It's going to be x divided by 6. What's the inverse of timesing 6? Dividing 6. I mean, forget about all this stuff today. What's the inverse of adding? Subtracting. What's the inverse of multiplying? Dividing. What's the inverse of squaring? No, that's the same thing as squares. Square roots. What's the inverse of cubing? Cube roots. Okay? All right, so here's what we do. Even though we already know the answer, here's how you do it. You change your f of x to a y. Okay? And then what you do is this. Inverse, and we're going to use this more. Another way of doing the inverse, we've been finding inverses. Another way of finding inverse is this. You simply put your x where your y is, and your y, literally just the x. Wherever you see an x, make it a y. Wherever you see a y, make it an x. Okay? So, what am I going to write right here? X equals 6y. Now, to find the inverse, here's what you do. See if you guys can figure this one out. I haven't told you yet, okay? Then you either solve for x or you solve for y. What do you think we do? Do we solve for x? And I'm going to tell you right now, here's a clue. We're not done. We're not done with this question. Do we solve this for x or do we solve for y? How come?
You already know it.
Yeah, if I said solve for x, what would you do?
It's solved.
You're done. And I told you we're not done. Okay? You solve for y. Okay? And how do we solve this for y?
Divide by 6.
Divide by 6. Divide by 6. Y equals x over 6. Is that what you said? X divided by 6. Okay? Now if you're going, I could do this in my head. Why did I show me work? Because later on you can have more complicated functions you can't do in your head, okay? So it's like 3 steps. First thing we do is real simple. You see f of x, make it a y. Then what was the next thing we did? Switched x and y. The third thing we did was we solve for y, okay? Write down y, switch x and y, solve for y, okay? Now, they want us to graph these things, okay? So y equals 6, what does this thing look like? I'm trying to remember if we've even really done it a whole lot. Not much this year. You did it a lot in Algebra 1, a lot in Algebra 1. What does this look like? Y equals 6x. Is it a parabola, a V, a circle, what? Give you a clue. Instead of saying y equals 6x, y equals mx. It's a what? It's a line, okay? So, I'm going to say mx plus b plus what? Plus, what can I add on there and not change it? 0. And make 6 a fraction, 6 over 1. And the reason why we're doing that, I've said several times, I said it today, I don't like fractions. The one time in math that I really like fractions, and so do you. The one time is slope. What's your guys' definition of slope? 3 words. Rise over run. When Mrs. Thomas taught you slope, did she write it like this? Rise over run. Is that what she wrote on the board? She went like this, I'm assuming. I wasn't even in the classroom. I'm guessing she wrote it like this. Right?
Yeah.
Why? Because it's a fraction. That's the one time we like fractions in math, okay? If your slope isn't a fraction, you know what we did? We made it a fraction. We want it to be a fraction. So, in this right here, what number's in front of this x right here? A 1. I'm going to make it 1/6 x. That's the same thing. Plus what? 0. They ask us to graph these, okay? So, here's how we graph these in case you forgot how to graph lines, okay? And that's something, there's 3 things, when you leave an algebra class, there's 3 things you've got to know how to do. Not algebra 2. By now you should know it. If you forgot it, that's why we're reviewing it, okay? You got to be able to solve equations, you got to be able to do some basic factoring, you got to be able to graph lines. Those are 3 things you got to know how to do. So in case you found out how to graph lines, first thing you do is you look at the y-intercept, 0. That tells you to go up 0. right there, put a dot. Slope is 6 over 1, so we rise 6 and run positive 1. And there's our line. To graph this one, we go up 0 also. We rise 1 and run 6. And it looks like that. Okay? And I'll tell you why in a few minutes why we're graphing them. It's not just review. Okay? There's a reason behind it. Okay? A few more. 13. On to number 15. Okay. So we have f of x equals negative 2x. 2x plus 5, I think it says, negative 2x plus 5. Okay, so again, there's 3 steps. 3 steps to finding an inverse. First two steps are really easy. First step is super easy. Second step is pretty easy. Well, what do we do first? I see f of x, what?
Y.
Make it a y. That's step 1. Step 2 ain't much tougher. Switch them. So instead of saying y equals negative 2x plus 5, I'm going to write what? X equals negative 2y plus 5. We just simply switch x and y. That's all you do. Okay? And then do we solve for x or do we solve for y? For y. And again, if you didn't catch it before, how come we don't solve for x? What would we have to do to solve that for x? Nothing. You'd be done. X is all by itself, but we're not done. So we have to minus 5. X minus 5 is x minus 5. Then divide by negative 2. Okay? And I tell you what, I'm going to write it like this. All right? To make it a little bit nicer, because we're going to have to graph this thing, okay? Let's write it like this. I'm going to write y equals, I'm going to split these up. X over negative 2, and then minus 5 over negative 2. I'm going to write it like this, and we're going to clean it up a little bit more, okay? In front of this x, we have a 1, okay? 1x over negative 2 is the same as negative 1/2 x. And a negative over a negative is a positive, so plus 5 over 2. I'm going to make that 2 1/2. 5 halves is 2 1/2. Negative negative is positive. Okay? And let's graph these. This is negative 2 over 1. So this is what we're going to type in. Okay? Or how did they, I think they'll take either one. Okay? You can put this in or this in, it doesn't matter. My computer says this, I think it's a better one. But well, either way. So on this one, we're going to go up 5, in case we've got autograph lines. How come I go up 5? Why isn't it down 5?
Because it's a Y.
Because it's not negative, it's positive. So up 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then our slope is negative 2 over 1. We're going to rise negative 2, so run down 2 and run positive 1. The other one, we're going to go up 2 1/2. 1, 2 1/2. Rise negative 1, so down 1 to 1 1/2 and over 2. Now, once you graph these, something I've not told you yet, okay, that it's nice to know. It's not, you don't have to know this, okay, but it's nice to know. There's a relationship when you look at these graphs. What I'm looking at is this. If I graph the line y equals x, okay, I want to make sure you understand what the line y equals x looks like, okay? Y equals x, that means the x values and the y values are the same. So, one value on the line would be 1, 1, another one would be 2, 2, another one would be 3, 3. Because x and y are the same, so 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3. That's the line y equals x. What you need to understand, man, I'm a pretty good artist, I can't believe this. Usually this looks like crap. If I graph this, I'm going to do it, you don't need to draw this, just watch. If I was to take this first line, or no, this one's first, and fold it over this line, it's a mirror image. It's like a butterfly. Symmetry there, okay? Same with this one. If I was to take these and fold them over each other, over the line y equals x, you get the same thing, okay? That's why they're having you graph these. You don't have to know that, but it's nice. Yes, ma'am?
I don't get the graph these one on this one.
How to graph it?
Yeah.
Okay,
How is it up 5?
because it's positive 5.
So,
That tells you where to go up or down.
so you don't graph the
You do the y-intercept first and then the slope. So, let me give you an example real quick here. If I give you this right here, y equals 2/3 x minus 4. First thing you do is you look at the y-intercept, -4. Where's that at? Up 4, down 4, left 4, right 4.
Left four.
It's the y-intercept. Y goes up and down.
Oh, down.
How come down?
'Cause it's negative.
Then your slope is 2/3. So you're going to rise 2 and run 3. There's a line. That stuff I didn't teach you is that they learned it. It's been a couple of years since we had it, but yeah, just refresher. Okay? All right, number 17. Let's try a few more, and then there's one more thing we have to talk about. My main goal is so I can get you to be able to do some of these on your own tomorrow. Not a bunch, but a few. 17. How many more do we have to graph? 17. Good. This is the last graph one. Oh, yeah, we're going to knock out some real simple ones here in a second. Okay, so we have f of x is what? -half x plus 4. -half x plus 4. Okay, so we want to find the inverse again. This is the last graphing one. Okay, so first off, change f of x to y. Switch x and y. So x is -half x plus, -half y plus 4. And then solve for y. -4 minus 4. So x minus 4 is -half y. Now we did this in an earlier question. We could divide by -half. I don't like fractions though, so I'm going to times each side by 2. Times this side by 2, times this side by 2. 2 times x minus 4 is 2x minus 8. These 2's cancel, we're left with -y. Is y all by itself? Almost. It's got a negative there. So here's what you could do. Listen carefully. I want to show you this little trick. I think I've shown it to you before, but oh well. If you want to get rid of that negative, I could divide by, there's a 1 there, -1. I could divide by -1. What happens when you divide by 1? No. When you divide by 1, what happens? It stays the same. What happens when you divide by -1? You get what? The opposite, okay? So, we're going to divide by -1. We're going to divide everything by -1. So we're just going to take we're going to oppositize everything. So change 2x to -2x, -8 into +8, change that into +y. Okay? All right. And I'm going to write it like this. Y equals -2x plus 8. I'm making -2/1. Okay, Jordan, you're on the spot. Let's graph this first one. What do we do first?
Negative, okay, so would it be -1
Don't look at that first. You look at this first. You always do the y-intercept first, okay?
up
Well,
4?
you said down last time.
Because it's a positive.
Good, up 4. And then, let's put the negative on the 1. It doesn't matter. So from this point, we're going to go what?
Down 1?
How come down?
Because it's a negative.
And then what?
Over 2?
Which way?
To the right?
How come to the right?
Because it's positive.
Okay, you're still up. Let's graph this one. What are we going to do first?
Up 8.
How come up?
Because it's positive.
Good. And -2/1, so from here, what are we going to do?
Going to the left. 2.
Careful, rise and run first. Rise and then run.
So over 2?
No, rise is up and down.
Oh, down 2.
Okay, how come down?
Because it's negative.
And then run +1.
Huh?
Then run +1. So which way?
then
Which
right
right one? Why right?
Because it's positive.
Good. All right. Done graphing these, and let's see. I want to do. Okay, let's see, that was number 18. We'll skip number 22. Okay. I'll tell you what, no, we'll stop there. Okay. So what I would like you to do is this, okay? I would like you tomorrow during virtual day is fill in the ones that we skipped. So go as far as number 18. Number 18, okay? All right, rest of the time's yours, guys.